Okay, let's get into this. We're doing a deep dive today into a really unique chapter from The Emperor of Gladness. Chapter 10, The Birthday Detour.
Mm.
We've got the text, naturally, and a bunch of notes and analysis.
Mm.
Our goal here is really to um, pull out the core insights, add that emotional context,
Hmm.
and the literary depth to what's essentially a very raw, reflective memory.
Yeah, absolutely. Think of it like you're hopping in the car with this Vietnamese American family. It's
Yeah,
this like darkly funny kind of bittersweet road trip through the rural South.
right.
And what seems like just a quick detour to a Confederate museum, it spirals into this really profound look at displacement, grief, cultural absurdity too, and how we deal with a difficult history.
Exactly. And we're going to explore how Vuong uses humor, sometimes really biting humor irony, and these incredibly vivid sensory details.
Oh, the details are
They
amazing.
really are. And they highlight this stark contrast, don't they, between this like sanitized, almost fake version of history the museum presents and the actual heavy weight of lived trauma and the family's experience.
And it all builds kind of quietly towards this devastating final line that just makes you rethink everything you just read.
So let's set the scene. We're somewhere in Virginia, late afternoon sun. The description is beautiful, blurring green pastures into gold, Blue Ridge Mountains off in the distance.
But immediately, you're right inside this rust and tan Toyota with the family, and the dynamics are right there.
Yeah, you've got Bongo, the grandmother,
Right.
clutching the handle like she's back in a war van in Vietnam.
Exactly, like in Tinjing province, and she's just observing everything, commenting on chicken coops, noticing how they move from backyards to front yards as they drive deeper into the country.
She has these great moments. Like she chuckles, her eyes get watery. She says she'd free the chickens if she could.
Mm.
And Sony, the younger boy, asks her, "You have a joke inside you." And her answer is just perfectly weird about helicopters being funny.
Especially if her daughter was driving one. It's those specific, slightly surreal touches that make the characters feel so real, so specific.
Totally. And then there's the Hall's cough drops moment. She pulls them from her pajama pocket.
Which is such a perfect detail.
Isn't it? Tosses one to Hai, the older brother, shouts, "Home run!"
But alongside that, you feel the tension, right? Ma and Aunt Kim start bickering.
Over pistachio shells, and Kim flicking them out the window, claiming it's okay because it's part of nature.
Yeah. And you realize that small argument is actually about something much bigger. It hints at Aunt Kim's plan to move to Florida, open a nail salon, leave the family, which Ma is clearly worried about.
So there's that simmering anxiety underneath.
Mm-hmm. Oh, how are they even taking this detour in the first place?
It's Sony. 9-year-old Sony begged his mother. It's an hour out of their way, and Kim's annoyed. She's got a headache.
But he insists, doesn't he? In English, it's very important, Mommy, I promise. You feel this kid's intensity about it.
You do. And the author drops these subtle hints about the time period, too. Hai is 11, Sony's 9. It's August 2001.
Yeah, there's mention of Hai's Gigapet.
Right, that little digital pet toy. And then just slipped in there this line. The Twin Towers will stand for 5 more weeks.
Ugh. Yeah, that just lands like a ton of bricks reading it now.
It really does. Even the detail about the cough drop, making Hai's eyes water, smearing the view of the Golden Hills. It adds to this slightly blurred, poignant feeling.
So you have this really specific family moment, all these layers of culture, family tension, and this ominous historical foreshadowing, all packed into this car driving through Virginia.
And then the scenery changes. They leave the trailers and junkyards behind, and suddenly they're in this surprisingly quaint town.
Yeah, like almost too clean, right?
Wow.
Brick-lined streets, black lampposts, little shops, coffee, wine, a boutique called the cutest darn place for miles.
The contrast is really stark. Perfect white sidewalks, a young couple taking a selfie. It feels like a different world from where they just were.
And the family's reactions just highlight how out of place they feel. Bongo asks, "Is this Florida yet?"
Huh. And Kim's just like, "Sony can learn something and it better be quick."
And Ma wonders if it's a school. They're just trying to figure out what this place is.
Sony leads them around back, down a gravel drive, through a gate. There's a little garden, a shed covered in vines. It's very quiet.
And there's a small, really lovely moment where Bongo Day sees mint and eggplants growing.
Oh, yeah.
She pinches the leaves, smells them. It's like this brief connection to something familiar, something real in this totally unfamiliar setting. A little bit of grounding.
But that gets interrupted pretty quick by Aunt Kim's fear. They're gonna shoot us.
Mm-hmm. I heard they can shoot you in some states without even asking. It's just this stark reminder of, the vulnerability they might feel navigating this kind of space.
Even in a place that looks so quaint on the surface. Maud dismisses it, but she's hungry, wants gum.
And just then, the back door of the museum flings open. Sony's described as literally holding his head in his hands. He's so excited.
And there's the woman. Puffy blonde hair, that impenetrable smile.
The attempt at communication is just awkward. Hagley tries to explain why they're there, learn about,
Yeah, struggling with the English. But the woman's super chirpy welcomes them in, leads them down to this basement entrance.
and the atmosphere immediately changes. Field stone walls, it's much cooler, smells damp, like Lysol,
Then comes the admission fee. $32 total.
which throws Ma off completely. She hears 3 and 2 and thinks it's $5.
Right. Heike has to take her purse and pay. And you see Aunt Kim glaring at Sony, linking the cost to her headache, the wasted time, more family friction.
But it's Bon Go's reaction to the space itself that really hits, just straight out, this place has ghosts.
So simple, so direct, cuts right through everything. It names that unspoken weight, doesn't it?
It really does. And then the blue admission stickers, this becomes this moment of, like, dark humor and resistance.
Yeah. She sticks hers on her forehead, declares they'll ward off the demons, make them look like shamans.
And gets the boys to do it too. It's this small, almost absurd act of claiming some kind of power or identity in a place that feels, well, unsettling, maybe implicitly hostile to her.
So the tour begins. Carol, the docent. Soft-spoken, cheery, frameless glasses, green cargo pants.
And her opening line emphasizes preservation of history and her artifacts, setting the stage for the museum's whole approach.
First up is this award-winning short film about Stonewall Jackson. And this is where you really see the museum's narrative control in action.
Totally. It focuses on all these mundane details, right? His walk to work, his gardening books, letters, what foods he liked.
And it mentions 3 times the text notes his teaching literacy to black families.
That repetition is so telling. It's clearly a key part of the image they want to project.
Definitely. The film ends with the statue sweeping music, building this picture of, like, grandfather-like benevolence.
And the insight there is crucial, isn't it? How the museum is actively crafting this narrative, selecting specific details, repeating them, to paint this sanitized picture that conveniently minimizes or really ignores the brutality of slavery and Jackson's role in fighting a war to keep it. It's historical sanitization as performance.
You see that continue right away in the kitchen exhibit. The description is great food everywhere, hand pies, rolls, cheese, fruit.
But it's all fake. Bountiful, perfect, and fake. Molded plastic.
And Bongoi, seeing all this food, genuinely asks, "They're gonna cook for us?"
Huh. Yeah, it shows her disconnect from the whole concept of a museum exhibit like this. Sony has to whisper that it's a museum. Aunt Kim shushes her, promises chicken tenders later.
That fake food, though, set against the reality of enslaved people having actually worked in that house, feels like a potent metaphor.
Absolutely. It's like the fake history being served up looks abundant and perfect, but it completely glosses over the harsh realities, just like the narrative glosses over slavery's horrors. It highlights the artificiality of the whole preservation project here.
And then comes the absolute core of it. The most jarring moment. Carol acknowledges, yes, the Jacksons own slaves.
But then the pivot. But, she says, smiling grimly apparently, we call them servants here since that was how they were referred to by the Jackson family.
Wow, just...
Right. That's the historical revisionism laid bare. The justification. It's contemporaneously accurate because that's what the enslavers called them, as if their terminology is the ultimate historical truth.
It completely erases the violence and the lack of agency inherent in the term slave.
Exactly. And she adds that some enslaved people supposedly asked Jackson to buy them, and that he let one man buy his freedom, again implying this kind of benevolent relationship.
And the reaction of the other visitors is key. They're described as white, nodding along, one woman touching her chest in admiration.
Which shows how easily that sanitized version is consumed and accepted. The insight here is powerful. This isn't just ignoring history, it's an active performance of denial, using language to obscure reality and finding a receptive audience. The family's presence just throws that whole performance into stark relief.
And amidst all this, the boys are having different experiences.
Yeah.
Sony is described as rapt with attention, just soaking it all in.
While Hai is bored out of his mind, he wants to watch WCW wrestling. He's checking his Gigapet, which is called useless.
It shows how kids process things differently, right? Maybe Hai senses the falseness, or maybe he's just a bored 11-year-old.
Probably a bit of both.
So the tour moves upstairs. More mundane details about Jackson's life. His study, his chairless desk because of digestion issues.
The parlor where he danced the polka, his meditating chair, the bedroom, his toilet, his uniform. Photos showing his mournful yet piercingly determined gaze. Carol keeps the focus very domestic, very personal.
Avoiding the general, the enslaver.
Completely. And right in the middle of this carefully curated space, Bongo needs to pee.
Urgently. And instead of searching for a modern bathroom, she spots this antique earthenware pot on a shelf.
And she just uses it.
Yep. The description is blunt, squatting, the sound of dribbling. It's this incredibly raw, physical, basic human act happening right there.
She's basically using a historical artifact for its original functional purpose, completely disrupting the museum's reverence for objects over people.
Then she hears footsteps, quickly grabs an embroidered cloth off a rocking chair, another artifact, uses it, and tosses it in the pot.
It's kind of horrifyingly practical.
And Carol comes back, sees Bongo with the pot, helps her hoist it back onto the shelf, even comments, "Heavy. They don't make them like they used to."
Oblivious, or choosing to be oblivious.
Totally. Then she turns to the boys and says, "Please don't touch the objects. They're originals. I know, I get it. It's tempting. History is fun."
The irony, history is fun after what just happened.
The insight there is just brilliant. Bongo's act, while maybe crude, feels like this powerful, maybe even unconscious act of defiance, of reclaiming space.
Yeah, in a place offering fake history and treating objects like sacred relics while ignoring the human cost, she introduces undeniable, messy human reality. Her body is more real than the museum's narrative.
And her little shrug and wink to the boys afterwards, it feels like, yeah, I'm not playing this game.
Definitely a refusal to fully buy into the performance.
The tour ends in the dining room, big table set for dinner. Jackson's huge Bible on a side table, size of a chopping block.
And Carol throws in that detail about him sometimes locking his wife out if she was late for prayers, ending, as she says, on faith, faith and nourishment, connecting back to the fake food, the carefully built image.
And then, bam, they're ejected into the gift shop.
Described as this tiny room renovated from some kind of ominous basement cellar, which sounds about right.
And the stuff for sale is just a bizarre jumble. Union and Confederate caps, side by side.
Playing cards with Confederate flags, a graphic novel about Confederate leaders marketed to kids.
Right next to Dr. Seuss's Green Eggs and Ham and Garden Seeds.
It's pure absurdity. The insight has to be about the commercialization, the normalization of this history, right? It's presented as just another product, another consumer choice, mixed in with totally unrelated kids' books and hobby items.
It collapses history, marketing, childhood innocence into this confusing, unsettling mess.
Yeah.
Commodifying the Confederacy without any critical context whatsoever.
Aunt Kim just buys Altoids. Needs something fresh, I guess.
I guess so. Then they step back outside into the heat. 95 degrees. Humid Virginia air, smells of sweet grass, hay, manure, real smells, contrasting with the museum's artificiality.
And the reactions start immediately. Aunt Kim asks what they learned, questions if Jackson was only important because he had a big house, a critique based on different values, maybe immigrant values about ownership versus achievement.
And Sony parrots the museum line. "He was a military genius, just like my dad."
Whew, which leads to Aunt Kim's sharp retort about his father being a bum who doesn't even eat Vietnamese food. Suddenly, that family conflict bubbles right back up.
And Ma has her own practical take. He just stood around and posed for photos. She wouldn't let strangers troop through her house for that.
It's such a grounded perspective against the backdrop of historical monument building.
As they leave, they see female cadets nearby, a glimpse of a different present, maybe, outside the museum's obsession with the past.
And then half an hour later, where are they? McDonald's.
Yep. Sitting on a curb in the parking lot. Eating chicken nuggets, filet-o-fish. This completely mundane, everyday American scene right after that intense, weird historical encounter.
It shows how life just goes on. You absorb these strange experiences and then you get hungry.
But there's that really lovely, tender moment. Bongo dunks her nugget in Sony's BBQ sauce.
Happy birthday, boy.
He giggles. It's just simple affection, real connection, a moment of actual celebration for his birthday.
Meanwhile, Ma and Aunt Kim are talking again about Florida, the nail salon, the money, the distance.
And the description mentions long silences widening between their voices. You feel the sadness there, the apprehension about being separated.
And Hi, our narrator through all this, he's just watching, staring across the highway at the cars, thinking about September, school, work, the future rolling on.
And he leans into Sony, shoulders imperceptibly touching. Such a quiet, powerful image of brotherhood amidst all the noise and uncertainty.
Then Bango delivers her final verdict on the museum. It was full of demons.
Back to the ghosts. She felt it from the start.
And she peels off her blue sticker, flicks it away. Hai and Sony do the same.
Sony smiles. Still got BBQ sauce on his chin. It's like this shared release, right?
Yeah.
Shedding the weirdness, the discomfort of that place. A little ritual of freedom.
A moment of bonding after experiencing those demons together.
Mm.
Innocent, almost.
And just you're feeling that sense of release, that shared moment. The narrative shifts completely.
Well, yeah, the gut punch. That's when Hai woke and saw Sony's face. It was Thanksgiving Day in East Gladness.
The memory snaps shut. You're violently jolted into the present. Sony's face isn't smiling with BBQ sauce. It's stone blue with sleep and moonlight.
His breathing is steady, but it contrasts with the silence of his absence in Hai's waking life now. Grazina, presumably Hai's partner, is snoring nearby.
And the weight of loss just crashes down. Bungo is long gone.
Yeah.
The whole vivid summer day, the road trip, the museum. So many years ago.
You realize the entire chapter, all those details, the humor, the tension, the absurdity, it was all memory.
An elegy.
Exactly. It's not just recounting the day, it's Hai actively remembering, actively keeping his brother present through that memory. That detour, the museum, Bongo's defiance, peeling off the stickers, it's become this vital landscape of their shared past, now held only by Hai.
The author contrasts the museum's flawed attempt at preserving history with Hai's deeply personal, painful act of preserving memory. It's brilliant.
The demons, Bongo felt, maybe they echo in the grief that permeates the memory now, but they're ultimately transformed, maybe even softened, by the love and remembrance driving the recollection.
So yeah, we've really unpacked a lot here. How this one kind of strange family detour holds so much the immigrant experience hitting American history head-on, the complexities of family, the humor and frustration, and ultimately the enduring power of memory when dealing with loss.
Wong masterfully shows that contrast, the museum's curated, often false history versus the raw, messy, emotional reality of this family's experience, and later, Hai's grief.
It definitely leaves you thinking. How do the places we go, the public histories they tell or try to hide, get tangled up with our own intensely personal memories and losses?
How do those official narratives end up shaping how we remember not just the past, but the people we've loved and lost, how we carry them forward?
So here's something for you, the listener, to maybe mull over. Think about a place you visited. Could be a museum, a historic site, even just a particular street or landscape. A place with a known public history, but one that also holds a really private emotional significance for you. How do those two layers, the public story and your private memory, interact for you? Does one change how you see the other?